Welcome back to PatBar LSAT Prep. In this video, we continue our presentation of Section 3 of PrepTest 76. This second problem is one in which we will be grouping possibilities. Our players in this game are 3 newspaper sections, 3 photographers, and a total of 6 photographs, 2 in each of the 3 sections. Our introduction gives us one important piece of data before we get to our rules, that there will be 6 different photographs. We know from this that no photograph will appear more than once. As it turns out, that detail doesn't come up this time, but it is good practice to see and acknowledge details that could. Our rules: each photographer will have at least 1 photograph appear in your diagram and no more than 3. There will be at least 1 photographer whose work will appear in both the lifestyle and metro sections. However many times 𝗲's work appears in lifestyle is the same number of times Fuentes appears in sports, which could be none, once, or both times. And the one certainty: none of 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧 photos appears in sports. So let's diagram. Our problem places the newspaper sections in alphabetical order, which makes sense, so we'll keep it that way. We know that each section will have exactly 2 photographs, so we'll add placeholders to our diagram, 2 per section. Rule 1. Each photographer has at least 1 and no more than 3 photographs total. Rule 2. Lifestyle and metro share at least 1 photographer. Rule 3. 𝗲's photographs in lifestyle will match the number by Fuentes in sports. Rule 4. 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧's work does not appear in sports. This puts everything in front of you. You may choose to add visual aids to the diagram itself. For example, lifestyle and metro share at least 1 photographer, and 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧 can be ruled out of the sports section. As you know only too well, you are on a timer. Any time you have to refer back to the presentation wastes time. Anything pertinent should be in your diagram. Some of you will use similar shorthand to what we're using, or you may have your own ideas. What works best and quickest for you is key. That brings us to our questions. Question 7 wants an acceptable selection of photographs. As usual, we want to eliminate, and the ones that stand out go first. A, for example, cannot be right since 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧 cannot appear in the sports section per Rule 4. E cannot be correct since no one can have more than 3 photographs. How about D? Can't be. Look at Rule 3. 𝗲 is to lifestyle what Fuentes is to sports, and D puts 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧 in lifestyle both times. Can C be correct? According to Rule 2, it cannot. Lifestyle and metro must have at least 1 photographer in common. Only B abides by all the rules, and only B is correct. Quite frankly, we did not like question 7 at all. The answers are long and reading them takes time. There may be no better example in these videos of the importance of eliminating the impossible quickly. When something jumps out that makes you say that can't be right, your instinct usually is right. Mark it off and move on. Question 8 presents us with an if-then scenario. We're told to accept as a given that both photographs in lifestyle are by 𝗲. What then must be true of all 6 of our photographs? Rule 3 governs 𝗲, and as such requires that the same number, in this case both of the photos in sports, are by Fuentes. That immediately fills in 4 of our 6 spots. For the sake of the visual, we penciled them all in. Rule 1 tells us each photographer has at least 1 photo, and the only photographer missing so far is 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧, so he must have at least 1 photo in metro. Rule 2 makes clear that lifestyle and metro have at least 1 photographer in common. That means 𝗲 must fill our other slot. With everything placed, only one answer must be true, that 𝗳𝗠𝗔𝗧 has exactly 1 photo in the set. C is correct. Question 8 is a makeup of sorts for question 7. You should have gotten this one in a matter of seconds. If you did not, mark this question in your book and come back to it at a later date. Yes, we're repeating ourselves, but this is vital. Time is not your friend when you sit for the LSAT. Question 9 posits, if 𝗳𝗠 and hui each has one photo in lifestyle, what else must be true? Pencil time. G and H in L. We find our first commonality in Rule 3. Hui is to lifestyle what Fuentes is to sports, one and only one. That means Fuentes cannot fill the other slot in sports, and neither can 𝗳𝗠 per Rule 4. It can only be hui. We can't really fill in Metro at this point. The only thing we know for sure is that hui can be no more than one of them, or we violate Rule 1. Fuentes cannot be both, or we violate Rule 2, and 𝗳𝗠 can be both and still follow the rules. So which response must be true? Remember, this is a must be, not a can be. Naturally, we can get rid of the cannots. E is clearly wrong. A cannot be true, it violates Rule 1. B can be, but it's not required. C can be. Your diagram makes the one must be clear, that hui has exactly one photo in sports. D is correct. Question 10 wants you to find which could be true about the appearance of Fuentes photographs. Another could be question, so let's get rid of what cannot be. Fuentes cannot have two in sports and one in lifestyle. That violates our third rule. C also cannot be per Rule 3. If Fuentes has one photo in sports, hui must have one photo in lifestyle. D may require your pencil, depending on your visualization skills. If Fuentes has one photo in Metro and two in sports, per Rule 3, once again, hui has both in lifestyle. Then we look to Rule 2 and see lifestyle and Metro have at least one photo in common. This puts hui in the second position there. Does this work? Look at Rule 1. Each photographer must appear in your diagram at least once. If Metro is Fuentes and hui, 𝗳𝗠 is left out. To put 𝗳𝗠 in that spot violates Rule 2, so D cannot be correct. What about E? Can Fuentes have two photos in Metro and one in sports? Let's fill that in. Did the problem jump out at you? Rule 2 tells us that lifestyle and Metro share at least one photographer. Metro is both Fuentes, so only Fuentes would be required to take at least one spot in lifestyle. That's 4 photos, and that violates our first rule. So back up to A. If you chose to attack these in order rather than eliminate, you may very well have chosen this as your answer and moved on. A places one Fuentes photo each in lifestyle, Metro, and sports. Fuentes can have no more than 3 and cannot appear again. Meantime, hui is to lifestyle what Fuentes is to sports. 𝗳𝗠 cannot appear in sports, so must take the other slot in Metro, meaning hui must fill our final spot, which follows all rules. Again, question 10 is a could be. We've proven that A could be. How you feel you're faring against that pesky timer may determine whether you bother with B through D or accept A and move on. Question 11 asks, what could be true if Fuentes and hui comprise lifestyle? Let's pencil that in. Then our rules. Number 3 places Fuentes in sports exactly once, and rules 2 and 4 combine to place 𝗳𝗠 in Metro exactly once. Here, the wrong answers will jump off the page. Fuentes cannot have both slots in Metro per our diagram. 𝗳𝗠 cannot have both in Metro per Rule 2. Clearly, hui cannot have both in sports, but must have one because Fuentes in both violates Rule 3. The only answer that can be true is that hui has exactly one photo in Metro. C is correct. Question 12 wants to know what could be true if 𝗳𝗠 has both spots in any one section. We can map most of this one out in our heads. 𝗳𝗠 is not in sports, so either both spots in lifestyle or both in Metro. Rule 2 means lifestyle and Metro have at least one photographer in common, and it can be only one per Rule 1. Exactly 2 possibilities then. 𝗳𝗠 once in lifestyle and both in Metro, or both in lifestyle and once in Metro. Hui cannot have both of either one. Fuentes cannot have both of either. lifestyle cannot be Fuentes and 𝗲 if 𝗳𝗏 is in there at least once. That eliminates A, B, and C and leaves us with D and E. Can then 𝗳𝗏 and 𝗲 comprise metro? Let's pencil that in. This should now be obvious. Fuentes would have to appear in sports at least once, and therefore 𝗲 in lifestyle at least once per Rule 3. D is wrong. Can 𝗲 have both spots in sports? Let's keep 𝗳𝗏 in the same spots and fill in sports. Per Rule 1, Fuentes must fill our final slot, and this follows all our rules. E is correct. Question 13 is the final question for this problem and asks for what could be true if metro comprises Fuentes and 𝗲. For this question, we're going to act as if we are on the timer. What is the first thing we see? 𝗳𝗏 cannot be in sports and therefore must be in lifestyle, and either Fuentes or 𝗲 must take the other slot. So Fuentes cannot have both spots and 𝗳𝗏 cannot have both. 𝗳𝗏 and 𝗲? 𝗲 is to lifestyle what Fuentes is to sports. Fuentes cannot take the second slot per the same rule, so what about 𝗲? Rule 1 is good, Rule 2 is good, Rule 3 matches up, and no 𝗳𝗏 in sports. Question 3 is a could be true, and C could be true. You will be making judgment calls like this when you sit for the LSAT. This could be, am I sure? Yes, I'm sure. Let's move on. As you practice, you will become more certain of your judgment. Part of that practice may be to go ahead here and rule out D and E. In our next video, we will present questions 14 through 18 of Section 3 of PrepTest 76.